there's so many different components to adrenal fatigue. So sometimes you can look at it on an individual level, in different sections, different categories, different topics around adrenal fatigue, like adrenal fatigue and mood, energy, food, empaths that we looked at before. Today is all about how do we even get there in the first place? How do we even get into adrenal fatigue? What happens? What is it? So today, if you missed the first one, today is a little bit more detailed in that respect. So you can always come back to the empath one another time. That's now part of the bundle, and the whole adrenal fatigue bundle. So I've just got the presentation on small screen here, and I'll be swapping from time to time to maybe myself and maybe the presentation, but hopefully you should be able to see me the whole time. So I'm just going to make myself a little bit smaller here so you can see more of the presentation. I'm going to begin, but I always think of a presentation as background wallpaper. Okay, it's not so much the stuff on there, it's more about what I'm talking about. Each time I explain about adrenal fatigue, it comes out in a slightly different way because I don't have a script. I have things that I want to share with you, but I generally go with what feels right at the time. So as long as I get my message across to you, that's what's important. So who have we got here? Good evening. Thank you for another webinar, which I'm sure will be great. Oh, is that Andy? Yeah. Is that? No, it's a different person. Fancy local. Okay. Karina. Welcome. Lovely. So the straw and the camel. All right. Yes, there is such a thing as the straw that breaks the camel's back, as I have discovered, as you may have discovered yourself. And you might even be wondering, do I even fall under adrenal fatigue? Because fatigue suggests that I'm knackered all the time. But what if I'm not knackered all the time? What if I'm just completely go, go, go? And this is one of the things that I want to go over tonight, because there's actually 3 parts of adrenal fatigue, but I want to talk about the 2 main parts. And that can help you identify where you are in that. In fact, a high percentage of us actually have some kind of adrenal fatigue, and that is simply because of the type of world that we are living in, and even more so now because of this collective situation that we are all experiencing, which takes a lot of our energy, a lot of our thinking, and a lot of our adapting. So this is on here is just something to look at, right? If you feel you wake up and you're unable to function without a significant amount of caffeine, tick, right? And if this is not you all the time, it doesn't mean that you haven't experienced it or you haven't got it. It's just some days can be worse and other days you're back on track again. But these ones on this list pretty much guarantee that you've got adrenal fatigue. So it takes really long time to come around. You might bounce out of bed still, but it just feels like you're just really slow. And finally, you start to wake up around 10 or 11. You might not even be hungry, or you might be super, super hungry. So I fluctuate between those 2 things. So you start to wake up a little bit, and then you crash again around 2, 3. But after or around your evening meal, you start to get a little bit more energy. You fall again at 9 p.m. And unless you go to sleep around that time, you actually get a second peak and you think, oh, I'm glad I didn't go to bed. I feel quite good now, right? This is the adrenal fatigue cycle, right? And what that does is it feeds into this negative loop. See, somebody's put a message on there. Yeah, please feel free to let me know if this is you. Okay, just drop it in the comments and say that is me. So what can happen then is your cortisol levels, and we'll come into cortisol in a minute, and what that is they are upside down, and you either wake through the night, or again you wake up exhausted, you start with the caffeine, you have the drop, so you have sugar, or you have more caffeine, okay, or you have more carbs, or whichever, and you start to rely on stimulants to keep you up, which are the very things that are making you crash. Isn't it interesting? Okay, so that is just a little checkpoint there. So let's have a look then. What is adrenal fatigue? Hi, Evelyn. Welcome, my lovely. Evelyn was at our mini retreat this morning, a very blissful session, much needed for everybody. So look, adrenal fatigue is an overstimulation of the adrenal glands by chronic stress over time, which could lead to an inconsistent level of cortisol. So sometimes for some people, it's that you've got too much. There's too much stress hormone. And so the symptoms of that might be you being irrational, you maybe being irritable, you maybe not being able to cope with normal everyday things, dropping things, this kind of thing. General overwhelm and exhaustion is when you've got a lot of cortisol. When you've got too less cortisol, that is when you feel sluggish. That is when you feel you can't get moving no matter what you do. It's that actual fatigue, right? So as you're kind of coming up to the crash with adrenal fatigue, it fluctuates between these two. So you can be really exhausted at night and then hyped in the morning. So in addition, people don't have enough DHEA, which is the parent hormone responsible for the creation of many necessary hormones in the body. So when you get into the nitty-gritty of this, which is what I do, because I really love learning about this and I feel like I'm dedicating my life to understanding this. I did anatomy, physiology and pathology diploma quite a few years back now, and I really started to want to know more about the body. But even more so now, I'm reading more and more about hormones and how they're all linked. We do assume that a lot of other hormone release, and we've got many different types of hormones. We automatically think of the sex hormones when we think of hormones, but it's everything. Everything's connected. Our sleep, our melatonin, our serotonin, our dopamine, etc. So at one point we thought that was released from the brain, which yes, it does as well. But individual glands release hormones as well. And when you look at the adrenal glands, it's got 4 different layers, and each layer is responsible for something else. So one is your adrenaline, one is your cortisol, for example, and one of them is your sex hormones. So if you are adrenally fatigued, it's going to knock all sorts of stuff out of your body. And that's why it's so important that if you feel that you've got some kind of hormone imbalance in the body, that you work on your adrenal glands first. You get yourself to a place of feeling more energized, more vibrant, to actually take it a next step further and look at things a little bit deeper. So you probably saw this screen before. This is basically my background, just to give you a heads up of basically on paper, what is it that I did. I had 13 years in corporate, lots of different things, flying all over the world, really loved my job, but I started to burn out. So as much as this looks like a lovely picture of what I used to do and what I do now, there's always a story behind everybody, isn't there? Each one of us has got our story. And this is what I want to talk to you about tonight, because this is the one where I think that you may resonate with some of the things that I'm talking about that have built up. Because what I can tell you is you will have forgotten so many things that may have built up over the years. And this is the whole thing, the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's the cumulative stress that has built up without rest. So I'm not going to go on and on and on, but you saw these little pictures before. So, I'm not always feeling shiny and bright. And when I was at my worst, I looked like this. And this is because I was completely exhausted. One of the first things that happens to me is my eyes go, and then I get inflammation. So whenever I feel puffy around the face, I'm inflamed. And that inflammation is my body's way of saying that something is being overdone. So your immune system, if you've got a poor immune system, if you catch viruses a lot or colds a lot, chances are you're adrenally fatigued. Okay, it's one of the first things to go. And it's kind of like your body's way of saying you just need to stop. Okay, and this is the type of personality, generally speaking, that experiences adrenal fatigue, because probably you're a go-getter type of person, or you've had so much stress over the years that are put on you by very dominant people, or you've had some kind of infection or virus that has had a knock-on effect to your overall health. Okay, so a lot of people with chronic fatigue syndrome, for example, CFS, a lot of that can be from a single virus like glandular fever. So what we do in the adrenal fatigue bundle is we look at your timeline, okay, from the beginning. So as I say, I'm not going to go into loads of detail, and I often just choose little bits, but you can see at a glance, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. And there'll be certain things that you pick out there and think, that's me. But so again, just think of this background wallpaper as I tell you my story here, just briefly. So when I had glandular fever, so I do think that was impacting in my stress. But for me, so down the bottom here, is physical stuff. Okay, so I divided it between psychological and emotional stress and physical stuff. Okay, so for example, I had some serious food poisoning stuff. I'm talking like E. coli at one point. Right, this is a huge stress on your body. And what I did at the time, because of the way that I was in my head, I was working for a Korean company. I was out of my depth when I first got the job. I was living in another country. I had no family support. This alone is just lots of stress. When I had the E. coli, I went to work. You know, this is the kind of stuff I used to do. Another example. So I started in this high stress job, and as you can see, a big part of my adrenal fatigue was abusive relationships, toxic relationships, all this stuff going down. But essentially, I moved overseas, burning the candle at both ends while abusive relationships are going on, high stress job, right? And illnesses going on along the way. Then studying a master's for 5 years. Some examples, okay, that I kind of went through in this high stress job was that my manager at the time, we'd work a lot of weekends, we'd work into the early hours of the night, and it was all very much a case of work hard, play hard type culture. And one weekend I was there, and we had all the different CEOs of Middle East and Africa, because we were Middle East and Africa Learning Centre. They were in there as our distributors to find out what the LG way was. The LG way was basically the values of the company, and we had to memorize this. As learning instructors, as trainers, we had to learn what the LG way was, to our core. And it was like one of those things, like the Karate Kid thing. You just don't know when you're going to be kind of tested on it by the manager that we had, who's testing us all the time. And one weekend, he said to me, can you go get the LG way and pop it on this memory stick for me to deliver this to these CEOs? Bearing in mind, I'm in my like mid-20s, and these are all like top CEOs, guys, a lot older than me, Middle Eastern, African, different culture, sat around, maybe 20 of them, waiting for this presentation. And as I brought it up, very eager and keen to please, here you go, you deliver it. It's like, okay, is this one of these moments where I have to stand up for myself? Is this one of these moments where it's a no, but it's really a yes? And it was just like, okay, go. And I literally put the presentation in the laptop and turned round and said, morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Nicola, and I'm going to be taking you through the LG way. This was one of many, many things, many, many situations that I was in that high stress job. So if you just take the job alone, it was a lot. I had a lot of business trips. Once as I got promoted, so my mentor left and I wasn't developed into a manager as you would in the Western culture. It was just like, off you go then. And he left the country, went back to Korea, and I took over this team, which was very stressful because again, it was a fully male management team, all Korean except me. And at this point, I was then not quite 30. Very, very intimidating, very scary situation. And a lot of it was done in Korean, so it was very kind of unfair and unjust as well, as what I thought in my head. But I got into it. We developed the team. We had a really high performing team. We were all just brilliant and loved each other, and we still stay in. Went back to Korea to help with some training, came back to Dubai, and then went to Thailand to be the master of ceremonies. Right? So at this point, it's like, what on earth was I doing to myself? And I got bronchitis at the time. And when you get chest implications and things like this, that is usually a symptom of that you're starting to get ill. Okay, it starts with the skin. The skin is now one of my first things that tells me. The skin, it goes then into lungs, it then goes into cells, into the guts, into the heart, into the mind, like that. Okay, and that's one of the processes that we go through. So these just some of the examples. So as time is going along, I moved jobs again, because you know what, sucker for punishment. And the thing is, with adrenaline, as adrenaline is building and you feel like you're more and more capable, you push yourself further, and that is one of the dangers of it. But at the same time, I wanted to kind of leave that culture and move to another type of culture. And it just so happened that it was a higher position. So some stress was released, but other stress was there on top of things. Now, at the same time as that, I actually ended up, you can see here, in a mountain emergency. So this is a whole other story. So in a nutshell, because I was high adrenaline at the time, I was doing some crazy things. And that included only taking a week off between jobs. So I worked so hard to leave that job pristine as I left it, you know. And when you look back, you will still be the get out clause, for somebody. You will still be, well, Nick did it like, why did Nick do it like this? And you can run yourself ragged trying to make things perfect before you leave. But you will still be that get out clause for somebody. I came home for a week, which actually I probably should have just rested at home because even travel is stressful for you. And then I came back. Now, in that weekend that I came back, I went for a night hike. That's right. I went for a night hike in Ras Al Khaimah, which is one of the United Arab Emirates, in summer, with a lot of people that I didn't know. So I went on the meetup.com website, and I'd already been on the hike with the leader of this hike. So I knew that he was legit, and I thought it was pretty good. But the rest of the people I didn't know. We all shared cars, and we got there. There were a lot of signs telling me that this shouldn't go ahead again. Like I say, a very long story. But as it happened, we got stuck. We got stuck on the mountain. All the other 4 vehicles drove off and left us there. And we stayed because a few of us couldn't manage the hike that well. So we were a bit slower. Too slow, in fact, that the sun came out and it was summer. So we got severely dehydrated to the point of our augurs started to make weird noises. It was like there was squelching. There was no water in the system. There was no sweating. There was no crying. There was no weeing. There was nothing. And it was at that point that I actually thought to myself, that's really interesting. I thought I'd be more sad. I thought I'd be more scared. And it was just disappointing. It was like, oh, is this where it ends then? On a mountain when nobody knows where I am. Why didn't anybody know where I was? Because I had isolated myself as a coping mechanism to carry on working so hard. It was just easier to just work really hard, get my head down, have a few friends here and there. And that was my life. And it wasn't enough. So I came up with two things in my mind. One, I'd isolated myself from people, and I need to find a better balance with that. And two, I'd not really put myself out there and done what was right for me in terms of my passion and my life. And I thought, what a shame. Now I'll never know. And cut a long story short, we eventually got rescued after a lot of hours sitting under a rock, trying to shade ourselves. And it was in the middle of Ramadan, and these amazing police officers who couldn't drink water had walked up to get us. They'd found out, one of the people had found their way to the bottom, somehow got in touch with the services, and finally, after many, many hours, we were all hospitalised. What did I do? Oh, I went back to work on the Monday. Yeah. And I didn't tell anybody until I fell over in the corridor. And so these are seeing your little messages pop up. These are the things that cause real damage to your system, to your mind. It was around that time when I started to get migraines, obviously, because I had complete heat exhaustion, but also because everything was just coming in at this point. Everything just started to implode. So sometimes when things get to a level where they are completely unmanageable, whether it's in the mind, whether it's in the body, it's not always a bad thing. It's a sign for you to sit up and listen and make some new choices. It's just sometimes we have to get to those extreme places because we simply don't listen. And what me and Gabby talk about, Gabby is the naturopathic doctor who's been working with me on this adrenal fatigue bundle, because that's how I healed myself, amongst lots of other things that I did, but mainly through supplements and certain foods. and obviously through mind-based stuff. And that's where my impact comes in, because I work a lot with the mind. It took a very long time to learn about what was right for myself. And I think because I was so tired, I couldn't learn, I couldn't absorb information. So what happened was, this was all the hyper. Okay, so this is the pre, when you're just like, as you can see. So insomnia can fall part of the pre or part of the collapse here. But what happened was, I moved back home. Right now, I already knew, based on my understanding about psychology and things like this and transition, that it would be quite difficult living overseas for 8 years, having this high-powered job, and then coming back to a clean slate. Now, a lot of you might think, well, that would be amazing. And it did feel amazing on so many levels, but it's also quite a lot, isn't it? It's also quite a lot of change. So I decided to spend 3 months in India, like as a transition, and I did some more training. I learned hypnotherapy, I did yoga, I did lots of different things there, and rested. Not enough not enough rest before setting up a new business, because that's what you do, right? So this is the way that my mind used to work. Now what happened, as you can see here, is a very close family member took his own life around that time, and it just kind of blew up everything. Even the transition plan, it just kind of extended the anxiety and the stress and the insomnia and the impact on my relationships and so on. So that's around the time when I completely crashed. It was everything, I became a stepmom overnight. The weather, going from a sunny country to a not so sunny country, and a different lifestyle. I had all this independence, but then I was sleeping on a sofa. I didn't have a car, I didn't have a job, and so on. And then obviously there's things going along the way, so being a new mum and things like this. But I'd already collapsed at this point, and it wasn't until somebody said to me, when I finally heard the words, "What you're experiencing is adrenal fatigue," and when somebody actually said to me, "Because of all of this." So at the time, when I first saw someone, I'm just like, yeah, I'm feeling a bit stressed. And when they took me back to my timeline, and this isn't the half of it, and it'll be the same for you, there'll be all these things along the way. Even just a couple of these things could be enough to give yourself adrenal fatigue. Even just something like what we've experienced collectively this year is enough to give yourself adrenal fatigue. So you add all the other bits on top of it. So it's about being kind to yourself when you are overwhelmed and stressed. So this is just a little diagram. I like to do graphs just to explain things in a more visual way. So I made this one. Right, so what this line represents is neutral. Okay, this is when you're just neutral. This is when you're chilled and relaxed and feeling great. And this is when you're stressed. Okay, so there's this extra line that I'm going to come back to in a minute. Generally speaking, we tend to have this kind of life, don't we? It is never all good. It's never all bad. It's very rarely on the neutral, but it's usually up and down, isn't it? I think you'd agree with me there. So it's kind of up and down like that, and that is life, right? Now, when you have had adrenal fatigue, I want to see this little cheetah in the background here, because cheetahs are born to, most of the time, chill. Actually, but they're the fastest mammal on earth, are they not? I believe they're the fastest mammal on earth, and they use all of their capacity in just a few seconds to get their prey. All of it. They exhaust themselves in just a few seconds. Somebody may know, what is it between 0 and something in their first miles an hour that they run, and then they have to recover or they will die. Right? This is the cheetah. But we are living a cheetah lifestyle, and we are forgetting to rest. So this is our neutral. This is our relaxation. This is our stress. So this is when we're in anxiety. We're up. We're feeling a little bit better, but we're so used to living up here that when we come down, it doesn't feel right. So we even sometimes crave it. And this becomes our new neutral. This becomes extreme high stress that becomes a part of the norm. We go, oh, now I'm stressed and I'm less stressed, so therefore I must be okay. Does this make sense to anybody? Do you feel this yourself? Is this something that you are feeling familiar with? Let me know in the little chat box. If you've just joined, there's a chat box down the bottom of the webinar. Okay, so let's look at that side by side. So you've got your kind of normal flow, your ups and downs of life, and then you've got living in high stress. Now, if you are playing this role, you're playing that role of the cheater, and trust me, you are going to burn out. And those symptoms that I'm talking about is the insomnia, it's the irritability, it's the overwhelm, it's the crying, it's the being emotional, all these different things, the inability to relax, the not feeling like you can relax, the isolation, the cutting off, the toxic behavior, the toxic relationships. What you want to try and do is get a balance of this. So when you've had some stress, or when you've had some even not even stress, but just high energy, physical or mind, or you've had a real project that you've been working on, even if it's positive, it can be wedding, it can be, births or this kind of thing. It's important to balance it equally. Consciously go, right, okay, I need some downtime. I need to now sandwich that high with the relaxing low. Evelyn said here that you find this familiar. This is familiar to you. Okay, so keep watching here. So these are some of the symptoms that we've referred to, and it's this kind of, are you familiar with that, with this guy here really stressing and just headachy and just like, God, it just, everything's just too much here, shouting, getting angry, getting frustrated with life, with people, it's like, yeah, people are annoying, for example. Here, you're just trying to keep going, you're trying to work through stuff, and it's like, oh, I'll give up, I hate everything. Insomnia, clock watching, just being absolutely exhausted and just going, oh my goodness, why can't I get to sleep? Okay. And then just a general kind of just feeling lethargic, just feeling like, what's it all about? Yay, just managed to access the chat box. Brilliant. Okay, so this is the kind of stuff, and I want you to know that you're not alone in this, right? Because people may look at me and think, oh, but Nikki's relaxed, Nick does yoga, Nick does mindfulness stuff, and all the, but I experience these things when I am overdoing it, okay? Because we are not supposed to overdo things. We are not supposed to be the cheater. Who told us that life was supposed to be like that? I don't think it was always like this. We were supposed to have this reserve of power, of energy, of superhuman force when we need it. That is the beauty of adrenaline and cortisol. That is the magic of it. It's not all bad, it's good as well. That is to get us out of emergency situations, but it's not to live in every day. Life isn't supposed to be that hard, that difficult. But there's only one person that can change that. And it's tackling it from a multifaceted, so it's you're looking at it from your body, looking at what we're talking about this morning, Evelyn. We're talking about allergies or deficiencies. We're looking at your cortisol levels. So in the adrenal fatigue bundle, we actually include a test. Now, testing your cortisol levels you can't do unless you actually go to an naturopathic doctor or functional medicine doctor or something like this. Normal doctors, or let's say traditional doctors, won't do that kind of test. And the reason why they don't show up on blood tests is because tests only look for extremes, so proper, like full-on disease. Now, you may have 0.1 less than the bell curve that tells you that you're in the danger zone, but because it doesn't come into that area, it's not showing up. So you're normal, you're fine. It's just stress, or it's just you've got mindset stuff you need to work on. Chances are you do need to work on some mindset, but sometimes it's the other way around, and you need to look after your body. It's not always about mind over matter, it's about body over mind. So one of the worst things I think someone can say to somebody who's got adrenal fatigue, who is quite an action orientated person, is, you're lazy. Because it's like, I'm not, and I really just want to embrace life, and I want to get going, but I can't because either I'm completely exhausted and I can't physically get off the sofa, or I'm too overwhelmed to do anything and I can't even breathe. That's why we approach it in such a different ways. It's your breath work, it's your mindset, it's your ability to say no, it's the supplements that your body is lacking, it's the type of supplement and the quality of the supplement. So for example, vitamin C is one of the best things to take when you have adrenal fatigue, right? And it's so simple and easy to get a hold of and not too expensive. But there are certain vitamin C's that dissolve in your stomach instead of in your gut, which means it's not dissolving at the right time. So the quest to understand adrenal fatigue, I want to make that easier, simpler, step by step, because I've had it. I know how it feels to just try and think about, what do I do? So it's like, tell me, what do I need to do first? Let me help you get back on track to start thinking clearly, because one of the symptoms of adrenal fatigue is, guess what? Foggy head, foggy brain, no memory. I remember when I first set up my business, and I was counting something. You're going to be like, Nick, I was counting somebody down in hypnotherapy from 10 down to 0. I forgot what number I was on. That's not a good sign, right? So it was one of those trigger points for me to go, oh, that's weird. I didn't know if I was on 7 or 6. And I just thought, okay, well, we'll just carry on. And I really had to step into it. I was like, come on, step into it. And that's what we do to ourselves, isn't it? That's why we get angry and we get frustrated, because we think we should be doing more. And should is a very dangerous word. So if things like that are happening, learn to listen to the whispers of the body, as Gabby would say. And as I say, the niggles in the mind. Okay, and they're very, very similar. One is from a mind base, that is me, and one is from a body space, which is Gabby. And that's why we work really well together. In fact, I just recorded our introduction to the bundle the other day, and I'm going to put that introduction on my tribe group. If you're not in the Facebook tribe group, join me in there. And I'm going to put the introduction to the bundle, because you'll really like that. So you saw this one last time if you looked at the empaths. So empath is a part of sometimes why we get so tired. It's going into a slightly different realm, but just have a look at all these different things that can impact stress. The body and the mind do not know any difference between types of stress, right? So Evelyn, we've got, yes, overwhelm, lethargy, brain fog, need to listen to my body and my mind more. Exactly. And you know what? We just get better at it. We don't get perfect, and we don't become like this all light and peace 100% of the time. Things happen, when we forget to check in with ourselves. But what we can learn to do is not beat ourselves up when we fall off track, but instead get good at recognizing what are our individual symptoms when we're feeling imbalanced, because that's when we can take our empowerment back and go, I know what that is. And you may ignore it. You may ignore those gut feelings and gut instincts of maybe I shouldn't go tonight, and you go anyway, and then you go, I knew I shouldn't have gone. Now I'm going to be really tired for like 2 days. So only you can make that decision. But all these different things on here are all the different stresses that build. Okay. And I got really, really good at this, because I remember once downloading this app. If you like this kind of thing, it's called Readle app. Readdle. It's a little calendar, and you, on my new Samsung phone, it's not available though, but it is available on iPhone. So I don't sell it, by the way. Sounds like I'm selling it. So on the Readle calendar app, you can put things in blocks of colour. So I used to look at my life in terms of blocks of colour. Even with the fun stuff, I had to look at it and try to have no judgment. Obviously, things that were less enjoyable would take more stress out on me, but even stuff that were enjoyable, even a chat with a friend, would exhaust me. So I had to be really, really mindful of how long I spent with somebody, and most importantly was communicate to my loved ones. In the bundle itself, I have a letter that I've written called Letter to My Loved Ones, and it's just a way to explain to people from your point of view what it really feels like, and how you feel like you're going mad, how you feel like you're a hypochondriac, how you feel like you're lazy when really you're not, and you just want people to understand, because it's invisible. But if you start to see those signs like I do when my face is getting swollen, I'll point it out to my partner now, and I'll go, look, I'm fatigued, something's going on here. And you'll get used to that red flag. But things like the communication. One of the first things that I did, and with advice from my naturopath, I saw a lovely lady before I met Gabby. She was called Jan, and she was like, I really recommend you sit down with your loved ones and you explain to them what it is and what this healing is all involved. But that can be tiring, hence why I've done a little communication letter. So that says there. I'm not sure if you can see it, but this is another one of my little drawings. And it's just because I try to see things in a more simple way, in a clearer way. So this is what I call a stress tank. So in here, you may have seen it before. But if we've got too much or it's imbalanced too much and this is high, we need to raise the good stuff. Serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, all the good stuff, right? So to get that down, we need to bring this up. Those are the things that make you feel happy. I have a whole other talk on this. It's called the upward and downward spiral and how to get yourself out of it. And that will be part of the bundle as well. But it's what makes you happy, what relaxes you, what makes you feel good. All of these things and examples and videos will be in that bundle as well. But it's more about what can you do for you. Okay. And if that means sitting down and watching a film, if that means saying no, if that means saying yes, sometimes things will make us feel better, even if they take our energy a little bit at the time. For me, for example, alcohol really, really zaps me. It really zaps me, and it doesn't have a positive. Sometimes it does, but really, when I look back, and especially when I was drinking a lot when I was working in that high stress job, wasn't good for me. Wasn't good. So it's not about cutting out everything unless you really want to, but it's being mindful of what it does to your body. Certainly, caffeine. I know. I love a good coffee. But when I'm fatigued, I cut it out completely. And I know when I'm fatigued, when I have a coffee and it doesn't wake me up, it makes me feel worse. And that's because I'm running off no fuel in the tank and it's just scraping the last little bits out of my adrenal glands, because that's what coffee does. It goes straight to your adrenal glands and it makes you think you're awake. And actually, it's borrowed energy. So that's what I'm saying. There's so many different things. Well, there's things that we do, but there's also things that you will know yourself, whether it's, we talked about creativity this morning, things that help you feel good. These are the types of things that we do. Even if it wasn't the bundle that you went for, we do so many free stuff in the Inspire Wires tribe. Just little ways at thinking about life differently, and this constant reminder to press pause. We do free yoga, all sorts of stuff. We do deeper mindset stuff. We've got 3 journaling courses, different ones. One's yoga, one's mindset, and so on. Membership's coming soon. But what else can we do? Okay, so let's get to some tips now. What else can we do? And by the way, we are drawing to a close. So if you did want any specific questions, then do get them in now. I want to leave you with some of these tips. Right, now food is a massive subject, but these are the main things that I want to share with you. So we've got 3 different meal plans in the bundle, because there's 3 different levels of adrenal fatigue. And when you're at the beginning, if you've got to the place where you've completely crashed, there's no way you're going to go in that kitchen and prepare some meal and be all feeling happy about it. You're going to be feeling, I just want to eat crap and I haven't got the energy and I don't care. Or I do care, but I just can't physically, I can't even think, what should I be eating? I think I've got an idea. I have been eating healthy in the past, but for whatever reason, I'm having a brain block. So one of the meal plans is literally, what can you buy that's really simple, easy, you can just grab, that is nourishing? Because when I first started my journey, I didn't have the energy. And I actually used to just grab, because I knew that some stuff was good. So I'd grab things like spinach. I'd chop up some peppers really quick. Sometimes I'd just bite into one. It was like I just knew I needed to put some good stuff in, and I'd just rabbit on that all day, and that's what would keep me going. Because when you eat sugar, you're back into that loop again. You're back into that negative cycle. Sole, I've talked to you about before. And I do speak a lot about Sole, but it's the one with the Himalayan rock salt, and you put the water in a jar, loads of salt. Make sure there's still some crystals at the bottom, so it's really, really potent. You get a teaspoon of the water, put it in a large glass of water with some lemon juice, and it's nature's electrolyte. Take out the non-processed stuff if you can. So all the processed stuff, processed food, is a stress for your body. It makes it work harder, and it makes your gut struggle as well. So we've got all sorts of stuff on gut cleansing and things like this, because this is part of your journey. As I said about vitamins, but you want vitamin D and also your B vitamins. Again, quality. So I use Gabby's products as well. Ashwagandha, you've heard me talk about before if you listen to me talking about adrenal fatigue, is an adaptogen herb. It's nature's magic. It actually builds up more cortisol if your body's lacking cortisol, and it drops it if you've got too much. Hello, nature. What? This is how I met Gabby, actually. I went on a Herbs for Health course. So I've done quite a lot with things like outside of what I'm probably known for, which is more about the mind. And that's where I learned about ashwagandha and other adaptogen herbs. Google it, there's loads. And adrenal fatigue pack. Yeah, so there's the supplement pack. So what Gabby has done is she's put together all the stuff that you need. So you don't have to think too much and buy them from different places. It's just like one bundle. It's called Natural Practices. Hi, Nick, it's Susie. How can I find out if I'm fatigued? I would love to work with Gabby, but I'm concerned about how much it would cost. Yes, well, that's the thing. That's what I'm trying to do, Susie. I'm trying to make this whole thing affordable. So naturopathic doctors are quite expensive, and also Gabby's pretty much up to her. She's generally quite full, so there'll probably be a waiting list anyway. And what it is we've tried to put together something where the information helps everybody. It's generic, right? But then there's a way to test. I didn't even finish telling you about the testing, did I? I went off on a tangent, which is what I do. Yes, there is a way to test. There's a few different ways. In the bundle, I do talk through some techniques that you can do at home to find out. Okay, and I've got some surveys that you can fill in. In fact, I might just drop the survey into this follow-up email. It's just an online tick box to find out where you are in your adrenal fatigue. But there's an actual proper test. It's called a saliva test, and which is great, isn't it? And you have to kind of spit into this these little vials all throughout the day. The reason why you do that is because you're testing your cortisol at different times of the day. So when you wake up, is your cortisol high or is it low? What about at 11 o'clock? So those times that I put at the beginning of this presentation are generally the times that you check your cortisol level. Then you get results back. So as part of the bundle, you would get your individual results as well. And there's different levels. So if you then wanted coaching with myself, then we could look at that. But most of the information would be there. And then what I can help you do is find a naturopath that's maybe local to you, a functional medicine doctor as well. It's not just a naturopath, they both look at that. So that's one way that you can find out, Susie. And what I'm trying to do is give people this information that they don't know about in the most simplest way, in a step-by-step process, with everything done for you, right? Because I've been there and it is hard piecing all this together. So, and I'll come back to that because I've got a list of what it includes. Mindset side of stuff, again, a huge subject. And in the bundle itself, there's going to be meditations, there's going to be workshops, there's going to be yoga classes. I've done a specific one for chronic fatigue as well. All sorts of things. Listen to your body and press pause more than you need to. So yeah, do I have adrenal fatigue or not? So if you saw the first slide, which I put about those different feelings throughout the day, when you're awake, when you feel tired, if you say yes to most of those things, then chances are you've had adrenal fatigue. If you've had a lot of stress over the last few months without little downtime, chances are you've got. Okay, but it's always good to find out. So I've mentioned here about Gabby, and this is what this bundle is based on. This is 20 years experience. This is not just me doing my Herbs for Health course and my anatomy, physiology and pathology. This is not me learning it from a big multinational company and putting it into a thing and selling it and, you know, commercializing it. This is something that I have been through myself personally. I've worked with someone for years to understand it, as well as my own learning on it, to put something together that is helpful. I feel it's my purpose and mission. So with that, then, this is the actual bundle. And there's also a website. If you want to go on that website, to read more about it in your own time, that's absolutely fine. If this feels right for you, this is not something that I'm going to push down your neck. It's a case of it's always going to be there for you if or when you feel you need it. So these are all the stuff. So I've tried to make it in a very step-by-step process. At some point, I'm going to do a video recording of the online portal, screen recording, so you can see what it looks like. What I've done is I've considered that there's lots of different learning styles for people. Some people, they don't actually want a video. So sometimes we think everybody wants a video, but it's actually quite nice to just listen sometimes, like to the radio. So I'm doing a video version of the bundle. I'm doing an audio version of the bundle. So you can sit and listen in your car, things like this, so pottering around the kitchen. And I'm doing a written version of it. So everything that you hear is going to be visual, it's going to be written, is going to be audible. Okay. So you can choose very, very simply, each page, beautiful. The cortisol testing. So the cortisol testing is additional. So if you're just thinking, you know what, I just want to learn about it, I don't really want to do the testing side of things just yet, then you don't have to go for that. Same with the supplement. If you think, okay, just tell me what supplements I need, I'm going to source them myself, you don't have to do those either. I'm always about choice and giving you options. I've already talked about a lot of these things, but Gabby and I have put together quite a lot of presentations and workshops and things like this for you to watch, lots of videos, much more detail about how adrenal fatigue works. So you'll find out more in terms of the hormones, a little bit of anatomy, physiology and pathology training, and you can see the rest of it there. So what it is, so the bundle, and this is discounted for you guys because anybody that gets the bundle between now and the official launch date, which is the 7th of September, you'll get it for cheap, and you'll get it for cheap for life. And that means I'm going to be launching it in 2 weeks, but there'll be more stuff that I add to it. And as I add to it, you will just get automatic access. So if you did want the testing and the result and the breakdown of that with the supplements and the bundle, that's how much it would be. So yeah, when you go on your self-healing journey, unfortunately, there is investment. That's how it is. I remember when I first came back from Dubai and I was like, I don't care. I want to heal and I want to feel better. And obviously I have made this as cheap as possible because when I tested this with some people, they were like, that's actually really good because I can't, this is me selling someone else's products. It's nothing to do with me. The testing goes straight to a completely separate website. Again, it's nothing to do with me. So you can choose that or not. It's up to you. But as I say, at the moment, it's going to be £67 and then it's going up next year. So this would be your chance to really have a look at it. But again, you don't have to. This is just the bundle itself. So it's all the information, all the workshops, all the meditations, all the yoga, all the information, all of that is only this. So, when you compare it to what you might spend in the co-op or your weekly shop, it's nothing. So that's where we are. I don't want to leave you on that page too long because you'll know if it's right for you or not. But that's Inspire Rewire's tribe. Come and find us there. There's loads of stuff that I do. Here, I'm just going to drop a link to the bundle if you wanted to have a deeper look. That has got, I didn't want it to scroll across there. How do I stop that? That has got all the details about the adrenal fatigue bundle, everything in there, okay, and a couple more videos. So let me see, are there any more questions about adrenal fatigue? Is there anything that's kind of like pressing and you just think, oh, I just want to know this? Ask me now, I will answer your question. Whether, I'll do my best on the body side of things, if the mind side of things. So I've got a whole workshop on saying no, I've got a workshop on insomnia. That is all going to be in this bundle. So how do you feel about that? Okay, do you feel that you're in the hyper? Do you feel you're in the hypo? Do you feel that you want to maybe just take the test? You can take the test. You can buy the test separately, through me, because you have to be connected to a naturopathic doctor. You can't just order one. That's the thing. You need to be connected to a doctor to do it. But I'm going to be doing it again. I'd really like to see from a few years ago where I'm at now with mine. So someone says here, I recognize it from my past and now see it in my daughter. Yeah, you're going to see it through the generations, because that's the world we're living in. But all we can do is guide people and remind them to stop. But nobody can tell you anything, can they? I remember my auntie telling me, like, years ago, you're going to burn out. And you know what my ego said? My ego said, I've worked so much harder than this in the past. This is nothing. And that's when we start to fall down. When we don't, why can't we just press stop? Okay. This is so important. So if you take anything from this tonight, is after you've listened to this, put your laptop away, put your laptop down. You know, whether you work for yourself or you work for another company, switch off. Put your limitations on your apps on your phone. I've got a wind down on my phone. It blacks out. It goes black and white from 8 o'clock onwards. I have limits of how long I can spend on my apps. And I have me time and work time. It grays out different things and I can't access. And you know what? I do follow it. I follow it because I've been there. I've learned the hard way. And it just gets a bit easier as it goes along to recognize your red flags and look after yourself. Love yourself. So I hope that was interesting. Do you have any more questions before I love you and leave you for the rest of this evening? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've missed telling you about. So many things. There's so many things to our stories, isn't there? So stress is stress. Whether it's your experience, your journey, or my journey, it's still something. So maybe just sit down and do your timeline. That might be a nice exercise to do at some point. And maybe that will drive home to you what you've really gone through. That can be emotional. And then when you're ready, take a deep breath and take it by the horns and go, okay, I'm going to sort this out. Oh, you're most welcome. Most welcome. And yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything coming up in the diary at the moment for you to keep in touch with, but I have I had my guest week this week at the Tribe. Lots of lovely guest speakers in there. They're all available. This will be available for another week. So if there's somebody that you know that would like to listen to this, do ask them to sign up. I'll keep it up for another week. They can still access it. Now I know that, here we go. Now I know why whenever I have reflexology, my adrenal glands always came up. Oh yeah, exactly. That's it. Reflexology is so good for balancing your hormones. It's the only thing I actually fall asleep at. And that shows how much it's relaxing, because when we're stressed, we find it difficult to relax, don't we? You're most welcome, everyone. So welcome. I'm here to spread the word about adrenal fatigue and help people, because it's this unspoken thing that we all collectively, the disease of 1,000 names, as they call it. Ultimately, it's too much stress. Right, my lovelies, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. Have a lovely rest of your evening. Get a nice early night if you can. And so much more information in the bundle. So just message me. I have got a list of people that want this supersonic discount. So I will get in touch with you maybe in a few days, see if you'd like to go ahead. And I will see you soon. Bye.